Slightly visible. At another time. The gates of summer have officially been opened. It's late June and school's been on summer break since the end of the first week of the month. No homework, no summer school for me, and no dealing with lectures and the endless prattle of my peers. You'd think that I'd be home, in bed, and dead to the world at 1 p.m. on a weekday, but I'm not. I'm actually at school. Why is someone who adores summer because it means no school at school voluntarily, you wonder? The long story short is that I'm a volunteer. I work on the teen crisis hotline at school. I have for 2 years now and going into my third. I've helped out around here for a couple of days a week since my freshman year. As a as to why a vagabond like me would be in a place like this voluntarily, let's just say a broken heart really makes a person take a look at the world around them. I was just coming in for one of my summer shifts now. I usually volunteer for a lofty amount of time during the school year. I come in around or after 5 p.m. and leave at closing for the students, which is 11 p.m. After we leave the hospital, takes up the calls in our stead. In the summer, it's different. I could come whenever I please. I've done shifts as early as 2 a.m. during the summer. It's kind of a place where I can just be me and have my solitude without worrying that my dad or my friends will barge in on me. The fact that I could spend as many hours as I wanted here, was also to my liking. I didn't have to stay that long if I didn't want to. That's the kind of freedom I approve of. Hey, what's up? What you watching? I asked as I strolled in with my hands in my pockets. Since it was summer, I wore a black short sleeved shirt, paired with black jeans that had a hole in the right knee area. I noticed the hole from wear in these jeans in class a couple of months ago. Every time I wore them to school, I picked at it in class when I got bored until it became wide enough to expose my entire knee. Good afternoon to you too, Dominic. Renard cut me a glance, then looked back at the 19-inch TV in the lunch area of the hotline room. This guy was a student teacher training for the day he'd become an actual teacher. I can't say I'd want someone like him to be my teacher. Hopefully I'll be then graduated before his dreams come true. The student teacher supervises students here at the hotline. Translations? They let us do as we please. Every phone call prints out a transcript of our conversations anyway, so it's not like we wouldn't get nailed for foul play. Just watching the coverage for the big funeral yesterday. Pretty rough. He replied as he rocked back in the chair he was sitting in. Oh yeah, so it was yesterday, huh? I replied with a kind of solemn response. Yeah, it's such a nice one though. Check out that setup. He nodded towards the images on the screen. It appeared the local news decided to drop in on those people's misfortune. That left a bad taste in my mouth. What the hell? Was my first awkward snarl. Why is the news there? I asked in a more straightforward manner. Doing their job. Although I see where the frustration is coming from. Broadcasting a funeral for a kid? That just seems wrong on so many levels. Renard shook his head. He went here, right? I don't know much about him. I inquired as I leaned my hip on the table across from the TV. Renard was sitting at it, eating his lunch. Yeah, he did. He replied, then looked me over. But I'm not surprised you don't know him. You're both from different crowds. Not a lot of opportunities for your paths to cross. His callous comment made me roll my eyes and scoff. I guess, was my only reply. He played sports. Such a shame. He said, then ate some of his homemade ham sandwich. Oh, here comes the family, he exclaimed with his mouth full and sat up straight. This is so sick. I grumbled, but I couldn't look away either. The local news was filming the outside of the church. That's lucky for the family that the church didn't allow media coverage of the service. That's a shiny casket. Poor kid. Renard had his arms folded on the table as his tone became melancholy. I began to fidget uncomfortably as the shiny walnut brown casket was being carried out of the open church doors. I had never known a kid that died, or anyone who was dead. It was such a weird feeling. It was such a weird feeling inside, knowing that this funeral was held yesterday for a boy who was my age. Things like this usually happen to adults. Maybe that was my youth talking there. It was such a rude awakening. Damn, look at his mom. I said in a broken tone as I reached my hand up to the middle of my chest and clutched my shirt. The family was carrying the casket to the cemetery up the block from the church. The mom was crying, but she was holding on to the casket. She wasn't blubbering, just respectfully wiping the tears with a handkerchief whenever they rolled down her cheeks. I can't even imagine my mom in a situation like this. Renard shook his head. That's the mom and dad on the left side. They're pretty strong. He continued. So on the right, his brother and sister? I inquired of the two brunettes carrying the casket on the right, across from the parents. One of them, the boy, had chestnut brown hair, while the girl had a darker shade, like milk chocolate. Renard shook his head. The boy in front is the younger brother. The girl is the kid's girlfriend. He informed me. He had a girlfriend? I exclaimed and looked at her again. She had wavy hair that went down to the center of her back. She was wearing all black like everyone else. A black waist jacket over a simple black dress. I couldn't make out her features too much because she had her head down as she walked alongside the casket, and her wavy and straight hair was weaving in and out of her face. Yeah, she goes here, the same as him. I know what you meant. I held up my hand towards him to avoid listening to him awkwardly stumbling through what he was going to explain. I stared at her and the brother for a few short moments before looking away. I cleared my throat. So, it was a car crash, right? I turned towards him to ask. Yeah, some idiots racing. He frowned. You know who they are. He asked me with a disapproving arch of his brow. I narrowed my eyes at him. Why would I know them? I asked in a flat tone. He shrugged. I figure your types all hung out together. His smug and haughty attitude made me want to punch him in the face, but he wasn't worth the effort or the anger such action required. I don't hang out with those types. Sorry to disappoint you. I twisted my mouth after I sarcastically quipped. Either way, he changed the subject. I knew he didn't believe that I didn't know the assholes who could cause such a disruption in all those people's lives. Something like this has his classmates needing a place to turn. We've been getting a higher volume of calls, so be prepared for that. The students need a place to vent their fear and frustrations about the mixed emotions that come with all of this. He explained to me, then looked back at the TV. I stared down at the table. I didn't know what to think about all this. It was just too bizarre that such an occurrence could happen. And in the summer, when students are supposed to be having fun. I turned my attention to the TV again, and watched them entering the cemetery. I stared at the brother and the girlfriend again. The girlfriend was my age, so I wondered what could possibly be going through her mind. We were obviously from different worlds, but loss feels the same no matter what platform you experience it from. That's messed up, I whispered under my breath. I couldn't watch it anymore. Not only was it rude and tasteless, but it was also sad. I'm the type that is very in tune with my emotional side, as are my friends. But watching this whole different kind of pain, one that my friends couldn't make up if they tried. I'll be around once I finish watching this. Renard nodded towards me without looking my way. Despite how bad it is, I think it's better to leave people behind against your will than to do it voluntarily. I said, but Renard didn't make any movements or acknowledge what I said, so I headed towards the cubicles. As I slowly walked, I could hear phones ringing throughout the room. I sighed as I shook my head towards my heavy black boots with jingling buckles. I glanced over to a stack of today's newspaper on a lone table with pencils, papers, pens, and other supplies for the phone operators to use. I grabbed one after I noticed the enormous image on the front page. I went to my cubicle and sat in my swivel chair. I put my boots up on the desk and rocked back and forth a few times in the chair while slowly twisting it from side to side. I unfolded the paper and stared at the image on the entire top half of the front page. So your name was Andrew Towers. I spoke quietly to myself as I read a couple of lines in the first paragraph. My eyes made their way back up to the large image of the family at the cemetery just before the casket was lowered into the ground. My eyes made their way down to the caption under the image. It listed the family's names by the order they were standing in the picture from left to right. Tyson Towers. I said under my breath as I stared at the little brother. He seemed like a strong kid. He was very put together for a middle school graduate. I looked back down at the caption, then my eyes made their way back up to the image. So your name is Michaela, huh? I said aloud after I found the girlfriend's name in the listings. Michaela Morrison was the girlfriend's name. I had never seen her here before, although that's not too surprising considering I virtually ignored anyone outside of my general circle. In the picture, she was just as put together as the younger brother. They stood staring at the casket as the mother was placing a flower on it. I could actually see her face somewhat, but she still had her head down slightly. It was as if she was trying to hide her expression, or maybe she just wanted to disappear. I stared at her for a few seconds, then made my way down to the story again. I picked up where I left off after the first paragraph. I read the story and the responses of some citizens until my phone rang. I set the paper off to the side of my desk and reached for the phone. My mouth worked a little as I went to compose myself. I could feel that my jaw had clenched as I was reading the story. I sighed before I answered. Thank you for calling the Teen Crisis Hotline. I answered the phone. The call was about the accident.